Welcome to Earthovision Spotlight. Today we have Richie and Nori. Richie, you've had such an amazing career. Best known for the band Sweet, Ballroom, Blitz, Fox on the Run, but you've played with so many other folks. Can you mention a few of those?
Oh God, I can't even say all the people that I played with. I was with Keith Emerson from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and basically I worked with the bass player from Brothers Johnson, Rick Derringer. I worked with Ronnie James Dio, Joe Lynn Turner, just everybody you could imagine. I could go on and on with it.
Such an amazing history and career. So I've heard little bits and pieces of your run-in with the Hillside Strangler. Wow. I'm intrigued. I would love to hear the full story, and I'm sure our audience would as well. But let's start out by what made you at this point in time decide, after all these years, to actually tell your story?
Well, the main reason is a lot of people that I tell the story, it happened in 1977, so there's a lot of people that are not familiar with the story about the Hillside Stranglers. And this is a story where, these cousins, basically, they raped and murdered something like 30 girls and threw them at the side of the roads. And so I was at the wrong place, wrong time. And we found out after they were arrested, we put two and two together by also talking to a key witness that they were there that night ripping off a drug dealer where I was at. So that's the reason I decided to go public at this time, because MGM Plus is doing a 4-part series documentary. So anybody that's not familiar with the serial killers, they're going to know now, because they're putting a lot of money and time into this, and it's going to be a lot of young folks out there are going to know about the Hillside Strangler. So basically, my story goes like this. Back in the days of 77, I was in a very popular band at that time, a local band called Satyr, S-A-T-Y-R. And we got to the point we outdrew Van Halen. We were doing better than most of the bands. We'd sell out everywhere. And there was a place called the Starwood. And you had the Whiskey and the Troubadour. So you had Eddie Van Halen, you had Randy Rhoads, you had all these people at that time doing their thing. And, we were in the highlight. We'd have the Go-Go's would come by our dressing room at the Starwood. We'd sell out 3 nights in a row. Where Van Halen, there'd be like 6 people sitting in front of the stage, or they'd be at Gazzari's and stuff. So we had a full laser show, and it was pretty amazing. We were way ahead of our time, so to speak. And we ended up touring with Alice Cooper, and we did some pretty amazing things. We never became ultra famous, and we never got a record deal because of music business, the consequences of that. But the bottom line is that one night, this little guy, his name was Little Johnny, came into our dressing room. And at the time, everybody was doing blow, cocaine, pot, all the drugs, experimenting, as we all know in that period of time. And mostly at the Starwood, which has an illustrious, interesting background with Eddie Nash, who owned it, with the Wonderland murders, and there was a lot of things that came out after that. So you had the Starwood, which one night we actually played with Aerosmith there. They came in as Dr. Jones and the Interns, and we were still headlining, but they came in just to blow everybody's mind. And so it was just the happening thing. A lot of big bands would play there, and so Little John came into the back, and he offered us some coke. And at the time, we were all selling drugs to help with our careers, to build our careers, because we had to pay for drumsticks, and we had to pretty much, build up the band at that time. And our manager was a drug dealer, so it was only, appropriate that not all of us did, but anybody. We lived in kind of a low-income area in the San Fernando Valley with big dreams and parents that were not wealthy. So we turned to selling drugs, or what you do is you end up doing dishes at the convalescent hospital, which I did for a while, but it was pretty ugly to make $1.65 in those days. So, we turned to making this with drugs. So Little John came back, and he had this Coke that was amazing. It was called Pink Champagne Coke. He goes, "Hey, you want to try this?" And it was super great. I mean, if you've never been on cocaine, in those days, you compare it with, you think of Sigmund Freud. He did it, so you justified it why you do these drugs. And what a path I took that night with John. And so I became friends with him. And at the time, we were being co-managed. Our drug dealer manager, our other manager who I met, his name was Dick Broder. And I understand that he helped start MTV at the time. A little bit later, after we disengaged with him, he was friends with my girlfriend's mother, who was a famous psychic. And so that's how I met Dick Broder, and he heard our band and he wanted to manage us. So he had this guy, Bradley. They lived up in Encino, in the Encino Hills. And Bradley had this vacuum-packed Hawaiian weed, which was like freaking amazing. I mean, you open it, I remember him ripping it open. And at the time, in 77, it's not like what's going on now. I was like, oh my God, that smells like flowers. And it was like, smelled incredible. And we were kind of connoisseurs of great marijuana. We were into Colombian and all the best weed at that time, and the Thai sticks and all that. So he gave me this vacuum-packed ounce, and he goes, "Can you move any of this? It's expensive. It's like $200 an ounce." I said, "That's pretty pricey, And he goes, "Well, you can, blah, blah, blah." So bottom line is I called Little John. I said, "Man, I've got this stuff that's like amazing." Now, Little John lived in Sherman Oaks, up on the top of this mountain, kind of way up in the hills in Southern California, okay? So you've got this guy that he's a bona fide drug dealer. I don't know how much he was moving. I don't know how much he was selling. But bottom line, this guy was and he dressed kind of like in a suit. He looked like a little mafia character, frankly. But we knew that he had the good blow, and, he loved hanging out with the band. So he says, "Come on over." So I came over. And usually at Little John's, I'd been to a couple parties there. It was jam-packed with people coming and going, picking up their drugs for the weekend and so forth. But on this Friday night, it was just Little John and this other girl that was there that I think was visiting. It was either his girlfriend. I didn't really recognize her. And so, Little John, I rolled up a couple joints, and we started smoking. He was like, "Wow, this is amazing." Now, how you got to Little John's house is it was these stairs, these wooden stairs that came up, and you had these windows and louvered windows like that. And that's important because it falls into the story I'm going to tell, is that so the wooden steps came up, and then there was two sliding glass doors, okay? And so these sliding glass doors were obviously locked at the time. And so we're partying, we're hanging out. And then he pulls out the Coke. We're doing lines of his famous Pink Champagne Coke, right? And so we're, hanging out. We're drinking a little bit. And all of a sudden we hear these steps coming up the steps. Now, he was not expecting anybody, because any clients that he had would have to call ahead of times. And he goes, "What the heck is that? Who's here?" So he went on alert, and he was like, but we're sitting at a table right underneath those windows with the louvered glass. And so they came up, okay, and there was two guys that they looked like thugs to me, and kind of Italian, and who in the heck is this? And right away they pull out police badges, and they said, "Well, we're with homicide. were looking for this girl. He named a girl's name. The heavier set one. He named who they were looking for, and Little John. I don't know anybody with that name, you know. So now I'm getting uneasy because now here I'm at this drug dealer's house that probably has, you know, pounds of coke in the back. And now I'm going to get arrested, you know, and because I'm at this, because I was like a piddly dealer, you know, but now I'm at this major thing. So I'm nervous, you know. But as they were coming up the steps and they came in view, I slid the pot off and John slid off the coke off the table because they were peering down at us.
So you stashed the stash.
That's right, yeah, because I was pretty worried. And that, oh no, these guys, who knows what their intentions are, okay? So as they were asking these questions, I actually got up while John was talking to him, and I took the pot and I ran over to the couch in the living room and hid it under there. So like when that happened, all of a sudden I heard the big cop say, "He's going around the back, he's running out the back." And I hear the other guy just running around and I hear him jump over the fence. Okay, and I go, then I knew that it was like, oh my God, they're, you know, these guys are serious. They're, you know, and then I came back and he goes, no, he's back, you know, he's back here, go ahead, you know.
So he came back and he wasn't jumping over the wall.
Well, he jumped over the wall, he came back and jumped over the wall, and he came to view, you know, the site. So then it was like, okay, they're both there. So now they're asking for IDs, or IDs. And so the girl went back and she grabbed her ID and she held it, you know, this is all through the louvered windows, by the way, because you had the glass over the table, but there was these louvered windows. And that's what they sounded like. They sounded like a big bird, actually. I love this where we're shooting this. But the bottom line is that the louvered windows, that's where we were talking. So I got my ID out and I showed it to him. And then she got her ID and showed it to him. And then Little John says, I got to go to my bedroom to go grab his ID. So Little John goes back. It's like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and these guys are getting, hey, what's taking so long? You know, hey, and so they got the idea, knowing that Little John's a big drug dealer, he's probably hiding everything. So at that time, they actually broke the door, and they just cracked that door open, and they come rushing in with guns, you know, white-handled gun, and they run with me and the girl, and the other guy goes search the house, and there's like a minute later, he's got Little John by the back of his thing with a gun to his head, and he goes, I've got him, you know, he was stashing the drugs. He goes, where are they? You know, he started yelling. He goes, and so they turn around, Little John and the other gentleman, and they go into the bedroom. So now I'm getting how evil these guys are, and I'm getting the guy that I'm sitting with. Now, before that happened, they took out the handcuffs and they handcuffed all three of us. So next thing you know, I'm in handcuffs and the girl's in handcuffs and Little John's in handcuffs. Okay, so we are really screwed. And Little John says, you guys aren't cops. You guys aren't cops. And I knew it too with the white handle of the police thing. These guys, we realized they were posing as cops. you know. So basically, they're back there and they are fighting. Where is it? Give me, you know, and they're screaming. And I'm realizing I'm in a quiet neighborhood in Sherman Oaks and I'm going to get killed. I know I'm going to get shot because they're going to kill little John in the other room as this fight is going on and on. I'll blow your head off. You're going to, you know, blah, blah, blah. This whole thing's going and I am just like, oh my God. Now I'm sitting up on like a very low couch, and this other gentleman that comes to find out, his name's Angelo Bono, one of the Hillside Stranglers, okay? That's who these guys were, and I'll get to the whole story after how we found out about that. So Bianchi had, you know, him in the other room. So Angelo Bono, I looked up at him and I says, listen, what? I mean, expecting that gun. You could tell it was getting so tense. Blow your head out, and they're screaming. I said, listen, I promise, if this gets to, you know, any kind of court or anything in the future, I promise I'll never turn you in. I didn't see your face. I just promise. And he said, shut up and fucking lay down. And now I'm on my belly with the handcuffs on. He grabbed me and shoved me to the floor. And now I'm on my belly. So now when you're in that kind of situation, you're really thinking that, okay, well, I'm in my early 20s and I love my parents, very nice people. And my girlfriend was with my parents about 10 miles away. And I started saying goodbye to everybody. I started saying goodbye to my relatives, my family, my mom and dad, because I know I'm going to be killed. And I'm thinking once I hear the gun go off, I could do a quick roll, because that's how you think, you know, when you're in that kind of situation. I'll do a roll and then I'll run towards those steps where the window, and I'll go head first out there. And that was my thing for survival at that time. I was like, okay, well, that's my only chance to get. He'll probably shoot me a few times, but I you know, maybe he'll get abrupted, and I've got this 1 second. Well, shortly after that, he comes out with little John, and he said he only had $7,000 and a pound of Coke. Okay, so basically, here we are standing by this time he's got us all on our feet. We're all in handcuffs. And he tells little John, okay, this is the way we're going to run it, okay? You are going to go to, I'm going to put the keys in your pocket to the handcuffs. And I'm going to put you in the bathroom. And if I see you even look down those steps, I'm going to wait there for a bit. I'm going to blow your head off. Do you understand? Well, oh, okay, you know. Now, little John, again, he's hanging with a pretty tough crowd. Who knows who his connections were for that, but I assume that it was pretty dicey, the people that he hung with, and I wouldn't put it past that he was in the mob, really, okay? Because Hollywood, Starwood, Eddie Nash, drugs, our manager, you know, rock and roll, everything, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, everything that was going on at that time. And so they left. They took off to the stairs. All of a sudden, I hear that bathroom door open up where little John, they put him. He was out there in a second looking down. He was looking down that steps. And that was it. So he ended up, you know, we had to get into his pocket. We had to figure out how we, all the keys unlocked our handcuffs, right? And so from there, I was in shock. I was like, and so I was really nervous to go down, but I went down the steps, and there was my future wife's little VW, little orange VW that was sitting there. And I remember getting in the car, and I showed up at my parents' house, and I walked in the door where my girlfriend was, and she was sitting there with my parents, and she was all bubbly. How is it? Did you? You know, and I go, oh yeah, I'll be in the back room, right? And by that time I was, yeah, when you have those, and I think out there, people realize when you come that close to that kind of situation, it's traumatic. So I was pretty torn up about that. So basically I ran across Little John a few times at clubs and stuff, and he goes, I think all those bodies they're found in, and the Hillside Stranglers, they're calling them, I think that they could be, I just got a gut feeling that they could be involved with that. I go, really? He goes, yeah. He says, because he was trying to find out through sources who would order a drug rip-off of a pretty notable drug dealer, right? And so he mentioned that to me. Well, my band, Sadder, at the time, we had a light man, and I won't mention his name, but he was dating a girl. And I won't mention the name of the girl. But after it all came out and they arrested these guys, they all realized how they did it. And they did it as posing as cops. They would pull off, and most serial killers, they kill, basically, or they're killing a lot of prostitutes. Hillside Strangler, they weren't your typical, they were schoolgirls, people that would have run from it. So how did they get these girls? And just like with us, it came out they were posing as cops. They'd show the badges, and they would pull them over, like right off, pretty close to where I live. One gal, she was walking home from school, or another girl, she was driving, and they'd say, hey, we found these drugs in your car, put handcuffs on them, drive them to Glendale to their upholstery shop, torture them, kill them, and drop them at the side of the roads. And they were ugly serial killers. Angelo Bono, Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Stranglers. And so you always want to verify these things, and so back to my light man that did our light, she was the key witness for the Hillside Strangler, case. She's the one that really got them because she was there. She's the girl that escaped death by cooperating with them to help coax girls in various things. So she was like, yeah, unfortunately she was the one. And she says that she was in the car waiting that night in the car while they did that drug ripoff in Sherman Oaks. And so basically, the moral of the story is that if you're at the wrong place and wrong time and you're getting involved in drugs. Now, I wrote a song about this many years ago, and it's called Running Down the Devil's Road. And I've gone to schools, and I tell this story before I play the song. I give them a little idea about, if you're at the wrong place. And I let the song tell a story. I would never go into a full dialogue of what happened that night to scare the heck out of them, but just enough, because the words really communicate what happened that night. And did I learn my lesson? No. I kept on partying. I kept on doing drugs. I got myself in the thick of some pretty heavy stuff, as I was coming up the ranks of rock and roll. And I lived to tell, and I was able to make it all the way to becoming very well known and being a celebrity by many definitions. And I just really felt like it was time to tell my story now that this is coming out, the Hillside Strangler, and so many people are aware of this, because I think the stories that we tell to give people understanding. And a lot of our youth gets pulled in by weird things like this, and unfortunately they do lose their life. But the more that I can help with my stories, the better. And I think it's a gift that I survived. It's a blessing that I was able to survive during a lot of years. In '92, I quit all drugs. I gave up all drugs, and I've been pretty much just doing playing great music. It doesn't take drugs to do it. And I just decided to just stop it. I took drugs as far as I wanted to. And, with my song, Running Down the Devil's Road, at the same time, coincidentally, I was just getting ready to release that song because people love that because I call my genre country, rock, and blues. And it's really a genre, a lot of my stuff. I have all these tracks and they all fit in this category. And Running Down the Devil's Road is a very Johnny Cash kind of vibe, but it also tells the story of the Hillside Strangler running down the Devil's Road. And so just like I said, it's pretty interesting how I believe spirit works for this to come out right now. And for me to be able to tell this story and, pretty much help people. At the same time, my group Sweet is, we're touring, all over the world. We just got back from Canada, headlining. Nick Gilder opened up for us with, you remember Ballroom, Blitz, Fox on the Run. My solo career is taking off, getting ready to sign a good deal, which I'm going to release. And then at the same time, we've got we're doing a show with Kansas in America. So I've been doing that for 20 years. And that's really we toured with Journey, everything you could imagine. It's been a very exciting career with that. And just like I said, before that, I was with Keith Emerson from ELP and recorded with Richie Sambora and everybody, just like I said, Ronnie James Dio, on and on and on. And I've been lucky. And I really attribute to, straightening up my act, achieving my goals by getting off the drugs and really understanding that that was not the way for me. And I'm lucky to be alive and I'm lucky to tell this story.
Wow. What a fork in the road. A path that could have ended up so bad and yet ended up so wonderful. So what a coincidence that it lined up with you releasing the song. So how can people find it?
Well, it's funny you ask because the thing is that I've really had different websites and so forth, and I've had a nonprofit doing very good things in the world with the Unity, Peace, and Freedom Festival. But I've had different things for my solo career, but it never felt right putting my stuff out. And now it felt right because I've got about 40 songs in the can. I've got the keyboard player, Dickie Sims, who was on I Shot the Sheriff. I hate to say this, cocaine. He played, I've got the sax player from the Eagles, and I've had so many people play on my tracks. And recently, I just had Scarlett Rivera play on one of my songs called Hick at Heart. I'm a Hick at Heart from Bob Dylan. She was with Bob Dylan she played on Hurricane. And I've just got such amazing musicians. And so now I finally have the website the way I like it with all the photos, everything. And it's under my name, richieonori.com. You can go there. And what I'm going to do is do a pre-release. Okay. And a pre-release is people are going to be able to get it ahead of time with a download. So you'll be able to scan in a QR code when you go to Richie Onori and be able to purchase Running Down the Devil Road, and you can listen to it and share it with people, and it tells a story, and I hope you enjoy it.
Cool. We're all going to go check that out. So thank you, Richie, for joining us here on Earthovision Spotlight, and thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be.